Okay, hello. They have picked a date for Charlie Kirk's funeral. Okay, it's the September the 21st. Um, Let me tell you something about September the 21st and this connection back to Prince Charles and Charlie Kirk, which we've already done some decodes on the White Wedding with Diana and that tie-in with Charlie Kirk to the 29th of July. So this is tying in with the Queen now. Okay, let me explain why this is tying in with the Queen. Let me show you this. The Queen's death, as you probably know, the Queen's death, well, let me go through this just from the get-go, right? We know that the 21st of April is tied to 9/11. It's the twin date for 9/11, yeah? So the Queen is heavily tied into the ritual of 9/11. She dies on the 8th of September. Now we're going to look at the feast that takes place on the 8th of September. And just in the back of your minds, remember that she was buried on the 19th of September. Okay? So let's go and look at why Charlie Kirk and the Queen are tied together with their funerals and their deaths. Okay? So if we look at the nativity of the Virgin Mary, that takes place on September the 8th. Okay, this is the day that the Queen died on. Okay, she died on this feast day. Now, you might be aware that it seems like about half of the Christian church, the eastern part, the eastern block of the Christian church, tend to still use the Julian calendar, the old calendar. So their 8th of September, okay, date for this feast actually falls on, in the Julian calendar, the 21st of September. At least that's the way I understand it. I'm not sure if that's quite correct. I'm not quite sure, because this says the OS 21st of September. I don't know if this is I don't know if it's just the way they've written this in Wikipedia that just doesn't make sense to me, or what. I don't know. Anyway, what you'll know is that there's a jump between the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar, and what that means is that the 21st of September, for whatever reason, happens to fall as the sort of Eastern date, also for this feast. Yeah, when they're having Charlie Kirk's funeral. Okay, so we've got the death of the Queen and Charlie Kirk's funeral tying in to this particular day. Okay, with the split on the dates with the calendar in the church. Interesting again. Kirk Church. Okay. Anyway, so what I want to do is show you some number jumps to do with this now. Okay, and one thing to just think about as well is that in Back to the Future, where we pulled a lot of the stuff with the black 4x4 truck, you can also remember that we were looking on number plates earlier, later on in the film. We were looking at a number plate for connecting Charlie Kirk. Then we were also looking at Thrift Shop, the song by Macklemore, with the DeLorean number plate in that as a connection with Charlie Kirk. And don't forget, at the start of Back to the Future, there's also the For Mary number plate. Again, this idea of this all being a ritual for Mary. Okay, because of these dates tying in on this particular thing. So let's look at the Queen's death through to Charlie Kirk's death. Okay, we can see that it's 1,099 days. Okay, 199. Okay, now don't forget. Okay, the Queen's funeral is on 19/9. Yeah, on the 19th of September. Look at this: 3 years, 3 days. Yeah. Mary and Jesus Christ, the Son, resurrecting, dying and resurrecting, the number 33, yeah? 33 years old. So we have this connection here. Obviously, if we click on a day yeah, to the resurrection now of maybe the Twin Towers, 9/11, rather than the demolition of them, because you have to have the death before you can have the resurrection, yeah. Okay, the number 11 resurrected, yeah, 1100 right here. So the number 11 in here. This is really important with this, particularly with this number, and particularly with the Queen, and some of the stuff with Charlie Kirk as well, and 9/11 and September the 10th as well. I'm going to show you some stuff in my Decode chart in just a minute to do with this. In fact, maybe we should go there now and just explain why this is so important. But you can see the number 11 there connecting to 9/11. The Queen also has this is also the twin date for the Queen's birthday in the year 421. And just look at this. We're just going to take the 199 out of here, okay? Just the numerology, just straight numerology. So let me show you this. The chart of Lorraine, okay? This is all to do with cycles. The idea of turning point with Charlie Kirk, and this idea of like a cycle completing. He's got this arrow on his thing. This idea of the complete cycle, yeah? Okay, and so we have these sequences, Fibonacci, Lucas, and what I call the pi sequence, and embedded within these sequences are 24-digit cycles run all the way through these, constantly. Okay, if you're not following what I'm saying here right now with this, okay, I'm sorry, but I don't have time to fully explain this in this video. It just takes forever to just keep explaining everything over and over again. It's all in the back catalogue. Anyway, what we want to concern ourselves with is that number 11, yeah? That 1100, the number 11, okay? If we look at the 11 column here, check it out. We've got the Queen's death date. We've also got her funeral date, the 19th of September, which is now tying her in with Charlie Kirk's death as well, her death with Charlie Kirk's death. Okay, so this is already looking interesting. If we look down the bottom here, we have this 364, which is a day shy of a year. So if you go from 9/11, 1 year, through almost a full cycle again, the Charlie Kirk thing, yeah, turning point, you make it all the way through to his death, 9/10, this is 364 days, yeah? See this? And of course, the 254, we will come on to that in a minute, but obviously 9/11 is the 254th day of the year, and there is also a really nice tie back, and in fact, I might show you this in this video if I don't feel like dragging on too long. This 254 is, again, from the start of the year through to 9/11 or 9/10, depending on roughly where you're ending and starting the year. And when I say that, what I'm talking about is that Charlie Kirk's birthday, which is 10/14, okay, we happen to have in 2023, we had the eclipse that went across the country, one of the eclipses that went across the country, and that was also when Madonna started her celebration tour. And from that eclipse through was 444 days through to it was 12, 31, 24. So starting this year, yeah, from that eclipse was 444 days through to basically the start of this year, through to this date, which took us through, of course, the start of the year. Now, what's important about this is if you do your number jumps from this date, you can get this 254 to run for Charlie Kirk's death as well, okay, rather than it being 9/11, if that makes sense, just because we're a day earlier. And I believe you can go 1 day earlier than that as well if you include end date. I can't remember off the top of my head whether that was including end date or not. I think this was not including end dates. So if you go, you can also make that work for 12:30, I believe, and I will show you maybe that number jump in a minute because it's super duper interesting. With his wife's just did a little talk. She did a little a little talk, and we might discuss this here in this video. We may not. Okay. So is that all making sense? This number 11, the thing that has to be resurrected, the thing that we have to re-find, which is balance, like perfect balance, rather than having the Twin Towers, the One Trade Center all tangled up together, we need to have those two sides of reality, the physical and the metaphysical, balancing one another. Okay? So we really need to resurrect the Twin Towers. Okay? That's the idea there. Okay? Let me show you something. Let's go through some of these other number jumps, and let's talk also about where they're going to have the funeral. So this number jump here, this is the number jump that Auto Page sent me. Thank you. This is pretty much why I'm doing this video right now rather than waiting. I've probably been tomorrow sometime, or well, I say tomorrow, later on today sometime when I would have been doing this video otherwise. He sent me a comment saying, hey, you know, from Charlie Kirk's birthday through to the funeral is going to be 11666 days. Okay. The reason why this is so interesting is because this number 11666, we were talking about, if you recall, we were talking about on the white wedding date, which is the 29th of July. The reason why that date is so important, again, with the resurrection, let me just show you back to this chart. If we look at where the middle of the chart is, which is right here, this thing here, this middle point, the number that represents these two things individually is, if we reduce the 11 and reduce the 18, it goes to a 2 and a 9. If we add them both together, it equals 29, okay? So 29 is the perfect amalgamation of these two midpoints, which is essentially, this is a tower, this is a tower, these are the twin towers, yeah? 55, 88 is the total for these two towers, yeah? Back to the Future numbers. And this happens to be in the 7th column, yeah? Tower 7 also fell that day. No aeroplane hitting it. Very fishy, okay? So 29, 729 is a super important number. 29 is a super important number. And this is the day of the white wedding for Charles, Charlie, and Diana. And the clock tower in Back to the Future is the Temple of Diana. If you look at that style of building, is the Temple of Diana. So Diana and Charles, if you look at the clock face, when the clock stops, the numerology on there, basically the number 14, but basically what you have with Charles and Charlie Kirk, so Prince Charles or King Charles and Charlie Kirk, is they have very similar numerology for their birthdays, yeah? Charles is the 11th, is 1114, and Charlie is 1014. Okay, right. Let's go back to this now, so you can see why this date is so important. You see the 11611 again. That shows up in Back to the Future right when Marty is at the just arriving at the Twin Pine Malls. Everybody flips that around for the 9/11. That again. You know, Marty's going to be in that position, at that place, again, later on in the film, watching himself be shot at and watching Doc get shot, yeah? So that actual location in the film, you know, we have this number reference for that location, okay? And Charlie Kirk was just talking about that Irina, or whatever the hell her name is, can't remember off the top of my head exactly what the second name was, but the Ukrainian girl that got murdered on the train. He was talking. Anyway, the assailant was, again, Decoding for Cody was talking a lot about all the different Charleses, and he was saying, oh, that was Decode or something like that. And obviously that's a derivative of Charles again. And the whole thing took place in Charlotte, another derivative of Charles. And interesting with the spider as well on the Queen's coffin when they were doing the funeral. Again, the connection to Charlotte again, Charlotte's web with the spider. Anyway, the God, I lose my train of thought when I start thinking too much. Anyway, he was talking about all the Charles stuff. Well, his surname was Brown. Okay, I just think about Doc Brown as well with that connection. And I don't think I said that I forgot to mention about that connection, that Brown connection, in that video. Anyway, so this palindromic number, obviously the palindromic number represents balance, and also the golden ratio, which is 1.618 yada yada yada. Yeah, the 1.6 to do with gold. Yeah, the golden ratio. The physical world around us has this encoded all the way through it with the different proportions of things. Okay, so we see this is a very physically represented number. It's to do with the physical world, the golden ratio. Now think about the golden child, the prodigal son. Yeah, Charlie Kirk, the prodigal son. Jesus, the prodigal son. The golden child. Yeah. Again, the reference to the gold resurrecting, the sun resurrecting. Yeah, the S-U-N and the S-O-N resurrecting, the gold resurrecting. This is super duper important. The number 16. Yeah. Let me also show you this from the big white wedding with Charles and Diana. Okay. And don't forget, originally when I was looking at this, I'm talking about, Charlie Kirk is the clock tower. Yeah. It's a reference to Charles and that particular church, the clock tower. The Charles and Diana, the Temple of Athena, that is a church, the temple, a church. So Charlie Kirk is Charlie with Diana. Yeah, in Back to the Future, that's the clock tower. What happens at the church? Yeah, the physical meets the metaphysical. It is literally the church or or the temple is a reference to where those two things come together, which is the reference to the white wedding. Yeah, where the physical and the metaphysical meet. Yeah, the male, the physical, the female, the metaphysical come together and meet. So this is a reference. The name Charlie Kirk references the idea of the white wedding. I hope that makes sense to people. Just the name Charles and Kirk, church, temple, those two things coming together, man, and in fact I think Cody was saying Charles means free man, yeah, and the church, the metaphysical, those things coming together, the white wedding, yeah. The original white wedding, the big white wedding, 7/29/81, Charles and Diana's big white wedding, 44 years ago, 44 days through to his death. Okay? Right. That is important. 44. So on the topic of 44, let me show you. Well, hang on, let's go through the rest of these first, and then I'll show you this other 44 reference, right? Or 444 reference, right? So this is from his death through to the funeral now, 11 days. This is 11 days on. Remember, from the Queen's death through to his death, yeah, and then obviously we have to botch it a little bit through to 9/11, the resurrection day, yeah, this 1100 popping up here, Okay, and this being 199 being the 11th Lucas number. Okay, super important what we're dealing with, the 11th Lucas number. Okay, and in fact, well, I'm not going to overcomplicate this, but if you were to click on a day, 12 days, yeah, again, 1221 numerology is 21 is the start of, and again 21 right here is the start of Lucas numbers. Okay, super important. I showed you this, you know, going from 9/11 through 364 days. Okay, so again, that was interesting. From this year's White Wedding, yeah, through to his death was 44 days, but through to the funeral is 55 days. Remember, you know, in here, the total for the metaphysical column here is 55. Remember, we had, you know, 88 days from Donald Trump's birthday was his death. Yeah. So again, you know, just crazy, absolutely crazy. So what else we got in here, Dan? Come on, crack on, mate, because this is taking forever. Charles and Diana wedding, yeah, we've covered that. I'll tell you one thing. Charles and Diana's wedding at St Paul's Cathedral. If you ever get a chance, like it was a couple of years ago now when we was back in England, if you ever get a chance to go to St Paul's Cathedral and just go in there when they're doing having a service and they've got the choir singing, that was just that was one of the highlights of my trip back whenever it was. I think I mentioned it at the time. But St Paul's Cathedral with the choir going in there, absolutely something special to behold. Okay, anyway, sidetracked. Yeah, there's our thing there. We did phi. We don't need to cover that again. Okay, let me show you this. So where they're going to have this will tie in. So okay, we're at IPEC Go. Okay, and we have the Super Bowl reference. Yeah, with the Super Bowl trophy here with Mary, and we have the dead son here. Okay, now, so the death of the son. I have another decode for this to do with Madonna, and that decode may or may not fulfill. I don't know yet, but it ties into October the 22nd for Madonna, and it also ties into Peyton Manning and Eli Manning and her Super Bowl halftime show, etc. But seeing as they were having the what was I going to say? They're having his funeral at the State Farm Stadium, which is the Cardinals. Okay, and we were just talking about a different red bird, the robin. Okay, a video back with thrift shop again, and the R. Kelly Batman Gotham reference. But anyway, it's just crazy the way this stuff all ties together. Anyway, the idea of the cardinal. If you look at the cardinal, it's a red bird. Yeah, the phoenix, the red bird rising from the flames. Yeah, Phoenix, Arizona. You just go around in circles. But at that Super Bowl of Madonna's, right at the end there, they have a Phoenix reference again, and it's it's just bog standard death and resurrection stuff with the Phoenix. Okay, but again, a little tie-in. But what was interesting about this is the last Super Bowl they had at that stadium where they're going to have his funeral was Super Bowl 57. Okay. Again, it was the Chiefs, Eagles, interesting stuff. Don't really want to. Again, this is the Chiefs, the upward arrow, and then the eagle. This is on the back of the dollar bill. Okay, this symbolism. I think I talked about it at the time. But this game, if we do a number jump from this game now, okay, It comes out at so from the game through to his death, 941. I thought, okay, well, 941's super interesting anyway, and it just so happens that I'm doing this video. Oh, look, it's 111 right now. 111 in the morning right now, and it's 9:14. And the only reason why I'm doing the video right now, is because my son, the prodigal son, yet again, was late getting in the door here, getting home tonight. So I'm having to do this video super late. Oh dear. Anyway, 9:41. Okay, click it. 160th prime, that 1/6 showing up again. Okay, golden ratio, yeah, the golden child. Okay, what else I want to show you here? I want to click this on. Did I want to click this on? Yeah, I want to show you that if you go out to, well, again, look at the 19th, just out of interest, even though it's the wrong year. You can get the 951 stuff, which is super interesting. I'm not going to go into that number right now, but if you watch the channel, you know what it's all about. If you watch We Seek, We Find, you know what that number's all about. And then if we go through to this day, we want to click the end date in, fudge it a bit, but look at all the 2s lining up here. And again, you know, super duper interesting with the idea of balance, all these 2s, right? Let's just go back to the table to show you something. You know, it happens to be 222 happens to be one of these totals along the bottom of here. Yeah, look at number 57 as well. Yeah, in here, 570. So you know, you start seeing these numbers sort of popping up, and you start realizing, okay, there's a little bit to this. You know, it's not just completely random. Anyway, I feel like there was something else I was going to show you guys. I think it was something to do with this, and what was? No, this was the number jump with our. Oh, okay, yeah. Let's just back up a second. Okay. This was turning point through to his death. Okay, and it's obviously the 57th pentagonal. Yeah, and they're doing this whole thing. You know, where they had the 57th Super Bowl. They're having his funeral. 57th Super Bowl. Yeah, tying in with the mother, the Queen, and Charlie, the son. Okay, I don't know what else to say apart from it's just, you know, completely around in circles. And this also with this number here as well. Hang on a minute. Go back to this one. The 941. Where were we at? Didn't we have? I'm sure I've got a 941 in here somewhere. Where was that at? Sorry about this. Now I've lost that now. What am I thinking here, guys? I feel like we had a. Feel like maybe it was one of these. Let's just click this a second. No, I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was. Was it this one? Okay, this was it. Okay, this 1099 was 914. Same numerology, and as I was just saying, doing this on 914, and just organically, so to speak, just the way it's come out, and then of course read this number backwards, 149 again. Oh dear. Okay. Right. You know, and that the 94 stuff also. There's a bunch of stuff with like Prince Philip, and it just goes on. You know. I want to show you one more thing. Okay. So this might be interesting to you guys. So I've got to go to this. This is her doing. This is Charlie Kirk's wife doing the the little talk here. And this is where Charlie Kirk would normally be sat when he's doing his stuff. And so there is a cover here. Looks like Time magazine, and so I spent a little bit of time trying to find this cover and see what it was. And I finally think I found it. Now, what do I do with it? That's the question. Who knows what I've done with it here? Dan. See, this is the problem. I wasn't really going to do this bit. I got a whole bunch of other stuff, as you can tell, ready for more videos. We want to go to that in just a second, and that. This is it right here. So, if you can see that kind of thumbnail thing that's just popped up, can you tell that that's the same? I think it's the same cover. As far as I can tell, it's the same cover. Okay, it's very blurry. You can see what I'm working with, and then just trying to compare that. So this is it. So let's go to it. Person of the year, and we've got Donald Trump on there, of course. What we want to look at is this date up here. Now you probably can't read that, but it says the 30th of December 2024. The 30th of December 2024. When I saw that, I was like, oh, come on. Okay. Let me show you that date. Okay. This is this eclipse date right here. Yeah, this is so important. The eclipse is so important to do with the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Yeah, Easter, the eclipse. The sun going into the tomb, which is the moon, and then re-emerging out of the tomb, which is the moon rolling, the door of the tomb rolling away, is the moon rolling out from him, to allow the sun back out. Okay. Anyway, this 14th, his birthday numbers through to this 30th, this Donald Trump cover is the 444. Yeah. As I mentioned before, but it works for the Donald Trump cover there. Okay. End date included. And so if you now go from the 30th, okay, yeah, this is how you get the 30th through to the death, and this is you get your 254, okay, which just happens to be 8 months and 11 days, the 8/11, yeah, Rocco Ritchie's birthday numbers, yeah, the middle of this table, yeah, 11/18, yeah, okay. So I actually, that's pretty much the end of the decode, yeah. But that 254, just remember, yeah, 254, okay. This, not quite, 9/11 through to 9/10, these connections here, back with the Queen, okay, and her death and his death, and all of this stuff all tying together with Charles, the son, the Queen, Diana. It's all to do with the physical and the metaphysical coming out of the matrix. Okay, that's it for the video. Okay, hope you enjoyed that, but yeah, that kind of tied it all nicely together. Okay. Yeah, I'll catch you on another one soon. I could probably expand on a whole bunch of that, and I've got some more stuff. And I'll probably put a quick video out tonight as well, because I want to get that done, because I won't have time tomorrow to do it. So it'll just be a real quick 2-minute video. You might like it, you might not, I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching this one. Good night, God bless.